Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. I hope everyone is doing well out there tonight. Had yourselves a fantastic Monday and a great start to your week. Here to give you a lot of information about what's to come. So we're going to speak on what's going on right now, how it behaves as we get into the overnight hours into our Tuesday morning. We'll speak on some snow out west that continues to fly around. We have a lot of snow squall activity ongoing right now, a lot of strong winds as basically a cold front is sagging through the western U.S. across the central Rockies. Who's going to see snow into the overnight hours into our Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon? We'll speak on that. And we'll get very detailed on the severe weather event as we're getting into our Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. We're going to talk about who has the highest chance to see a tornado, the risk area that I am watching like a hawk. And then I do think tomorrow is going to pose a pretty big risk for some large hail in certain areas of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, maybe even areas of like southern lower Michigan. So we need to speak on all this. We're going to nerd out on you guys a little bit. Of course, take a look at what some short-range model guidance is showing with the timing and the evolution of these storms. But if you do really want to know what's driving this setup, we'll have that in a segment too for the severe weather threat for tomorrow. We're really going to dive deep into what's driving this. So after that, we'll speak on how the rest of the system behaves as it continues to move into the eastern U.S. And then we'll switch gears and kind of give you some information about a storm system we are watching right at the end of this week. But it has the potential, showing some signs, some signals, to be a severe weather threat as we are getting into our Sunday and Monday for the middle of the country. Of course, we don't want to speak too heavily on this. It's still 6 to 7 days out, and we don't want to throw out any false alarms or anything like that. But we're going to talk about what we are seeing and how this system, as we get about a day or two into March, has the potential to be more maybe one of those more higher end severe weather events if it unfolds the way it's showing right now. So we'll break all this down for you folks and get very detailed. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I want to thank y'all for the continuous support. Things have slowed down over the last 10 days. The views have went down, which is fine. And we broke the streak. We had, I think, videos that were pushing over 10,000 views for like 5 to 6 weeks in a row. We finally kind of broke that streak, which is fine. It's been nice. It being a little bit more relaxed weather-wise, just kind of catching my breath. And it's been beautiful, the transition as far as timing where, I've had to other things in my life ongoing with becoming a soccer coach for the third season in a row and just becoming a deacon, having more responsibilities. And it's really kind of correlated well with the weather just kind of slowing down a bit. So it's been nice, but I do want to thank y'all for the people who continue to tune in regardless if it's active, slow, somewhere in the middle. Thank y'all for the people who just continue to tune in. It means a lot. All right. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, as always, you know the deal. Please put those in the comments below. Sorry about the 3-minute intro. Let's get rocking and rolling. So we continue to have a lot of moisture out west. It's not really wide. Well, it is widespread, but there's nothing really congealed together much. You got on and off snow squalls, especially and obviously in the higher elevations where it's cold enough for snow. But some of these snow levels are quite low in certain areas, depending on where the cold front has moved in and where it hasn't. The moisture is just starting to move into like northern Utah and northern Nevada. It will become a lot more widespread in like Colorado, Wyoming as we continue to work our way into the overnight hours tonight. Kind of a swath of snow that's making its way through the heart of Montana, starting to move eastward. This will eventually move into the Dakotas overnight with cold air spilling in into the northern plains. But you see kind of the on and off greens and blues, even some pinks in here. That is on and off burst of snow, accompanied by a pretty strong gust of wind. So it's definitely quite active out in the western U.S. So it's going to get much more active also. Even some storms into the overnight hours in the Ohio Valley as we're getting into tonight, into tomorrow night, just in that entire time frame. So watches, warnings, and advisories, it's quite active. You see that bright, hot pink color on your screen. That is red flag warnings. A lot of areas of the country has gotten quite dry. It's even getting kind of dry in the southeast where we had storm system after storm system. But, I mean, I'm trying to think back with the last major rainstorm that we had here locally in the Carolinas, and I honestly cannot put my thoughts on it or put my finger on it as far as when it was. But, we're not dry. We're not in drought conditions. But there's a lot of areas of the country that's getting quite dry. And that's why you have the red flag warnings. A lot of dry air is going to move in. you pose that fire danger with the winds mixing with the dry air. So you do have wind advisories already up ahead of this system across the Mississippi Valley, points west and east. This mustard color, that's high wind warnings, winter storm warnings up in the pink color right in here. We got and just high wind watches here in the brown color here. And if you look at these winter weather advisories here in southern Oregon, northern California, and the Sierra Nevada, this isn't really what's going on right now. This is what's to come at the end of the week. Really getting into the next couple of days, where they're already sounding the alarm for several feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada as we are getting here into the next couple of days. Winter weather advisories up for areas of the northern plains into sections of Minnesota. We even got one county in northern Minnesota that has a winter storm warning, some winter storm watches up. Honestly surprised they've issued winter storm warnings up here in northern Minnesota. I know it's just one county. I'm not sure what their criteria is, but I'm not expecting like a foot of snow up here, but it did warrant the winter storm warning up here. And then we already have some winter weather advisories in the UP of Michigan ahead of a winter weather event that's on the way. We've been kind of talking about that a little bit, but definitely going to get quite active in Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming over the next several hours. So let's go on and talk about that. We'll start off tonight. This is around 11 p.m. here in the next few hours. The cold front's right in here. It's right in here. You see this kind of line of snow moving through the heart of Nevada. That will probably be in the form of some sort of snow squall. Probably be pretty intense if you live in the heart of Nevada, especially in those higher elevations. This will most likely move right through Salt Lake City. Could dump a quick inch or two of snow. The snow will probably linger around. It looks like it's cold enough to be snowing in Salt Lake City as we were getting into the wee hours of the morning, well after midnight. Snowing pretty good in the Rockies and Colorado. Snowing up in northern Wyoming. Snow begins to make its way into North Dakota. We'll speak heavily on that here in a second. But you continue to have a lot of snow squall activity. Burst of snow throughout the northern Rockies, northern Cascades. But certainly the snow begins to pick up in Utah, Colorado. And then we take it all the way to about tomorrow morning pretty much. Still got snow flying around. Maybe some lingering light to moderate snow. Just outside the Salt Lake City region, a little bit of lingering light snow in western Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and still snowing pretty good in the Rockies here in Colorado, but even this will begin to let up. But as we are getting into tomorrow afternoon, the snow squall activity could get a little bit more enhanced, and we can continue just to have bursts of snow into western Montana, even in the lower elevations. A lot of cold air stone worked in, so those lower valley communities and town cities, we could even get some snow from this too, just on and off snow showers and bursts of snow. And then we take it all the way out into our Tuesday night. Things begin to quiet down. The only area that continues to pick up a ton of snow is not the Sierra Nevada, but the Pacific Northwest and the Cascades. You barely have enough time for this one system to really pull out. And already by the time we're making our way into midday tomorrow, we have another system. It's kind of the beginning stages to a big system that's going to make its way. Just a steady stream of moisture coming in over the next several days out west. But the Olympic Mountains, it's cold enough for snow. Cascades getting a lot of snow, and this continues all the way through, pretty much all the way through the length of the HRRR model, which takes us to about late morning Wednesday out west. So it looks like a little bit more warmer air is going to surge into this system, so the snow levels may rise in these areas. But yeah, snowfall between now and Wednesday morning. As you can tell, we're going to add up these snows in these higher peaks in Utah, Wyoming. Bighorn Mountain's going to get hit hard. All the ranges here in Colorado, the Rockies, getting a little bit of snow in the Sierra Nevada. We're already getting snow in northern Nevada. And then we're going to get additional snowfall accumulations even in Idaho and southern Montana. Certainly going to get some snow too. A little bit of snow in Salt Lake City, Denver, these places. Certainly the Pacific Northwest is going to get several inches of snow. We're going to take this all the way out to, let's just go to Thursday evening. I mean, several inches to several feet of snow depending on your elevation. Even the coastal range will get a little bit of snow. Olympic Mountains will get crushed also. So certainly an elevated driven storm, but just like they always are out here. But the snow levels were very low today in the valley regions of just Washington State. They really were in these regions right in here. Saw some really cool videos that a guy I follow here in Washington State, and it was really cool seeing the grapple falling at just a few hundred feet. So a little quick graphic out of Utah. This was updated a little bit earlier today, but they're still going for about 1 to 2 inches of snow in Salt Lake City. But you get up in those higher elevations just outside the city limits, you're certainly going to get a lot more snow. Here's a little bit of a discussion on this too. And then we check out our folks in Denver. The possibility of snow has decreased. Now they're only calling for an inch or less. So I'm not thinking this is going to be as an impactful event as maybe they once were thinking, like where they were thinking at once that maybe Denver, Castle Rock, heck, even Evergreen, I think was calling for like 4 to 6 inches at one point. They have dramatically dropped off the snow totals and really just kind of kept them for the higher elevations of Colorado. So winds, we'll kind of start this just after midnight tonight. Winds will already be howling in Utah, Colorado, and it really will increase as we are getting into tomorrow morning in New Mexico, where you got winds up to 40 to 60 miles per hour. Look in southern Colorado, 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Winds are really going to increase. Probably a fire danger will materialize. Don't light any kind of fires out here. You have flyers. But winds are gusting to 40, 50, 55 miles per hour in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. Winds continue to gust pretty hardcore out here, especially in eastern New Mexico. And I think things will kind of simmer down for the most part as we are getting into our Tuesday evening. But very windy conditions in the southern Rockies and the southern high plains, central high plains for sure. And winds will continue to be gusting pretty high, even as we are getting into the overnight hours of Tuesday and then our Wednesday morning, where the Bighorn Mountains, and not the Bighorn Mountains, but the southern ranges of Wyoming will once again start. This has to be one of the most windiest portions of the country right here in southern and southeast Wyoming. It seems like there's just always an enhancement of winds, probably just due to the geographical features, as there's kind of multiple ranges that kind of extend all the way up here into the northern Rockies. But anyways, we'll briefly speak on this. There will be, from my folks, that please let me know if you're tuning in from the Dakotas. I would love to know. I know I have a couple people, but some snow will move in from west to east overnight. It's about the time we are getting into around midnight. There will be an area of moderate to heavy snow that's making its way through the state of North Dakota. And then also will eventually get a little bit more enhanced as a low tries to deepen right in here at the base of this cold front trough here. Snow will fall pretty heavily here in the northwest corner of Minnesota. Then we'll have a development of a little bit of snow back here right as the sun's coming up here in central and western sections of South Dakota also. Snow will definitely be falling at a pretty good clip here in northern. This county right here has a winter storm warning. You guys will get a pretty prolonged period of snow. And then we're getting into tomorrow morning all the way to about midday tomorrow. An area of snow will continue to fly around here as this starts to make its way and extend all the way down to Nebraska. And then a little bit of snow starts to get going. This could be a kind of associated with a cold front. So this line of snow right here that you're seeing, kind of starting to enter the northwest corner of Iowa, moving through central and southern and southwestern sections of Minnesota, extending all the way down here into eastern areas of Nebraska. This could be accompanied with a pretty intense burst of 1 to 2 hours of snow, some gusty winds, and this is starting to get into like 6, 7 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. You could get a solid burst of snow sometime tomorrow afternoon in the Minneapolis region, And then we'll get some snow that will make its way through Iowa late tomorrow evening, and then could get a burst of snow as this begins to leave our screen. But snowfall between now and the next 48 hours, Bighorn Mountain, Wyoming is going to pick up a good bit of snow. The southern counties of Wyoming, and then there's that stripe of snow going right through North Dakota. A little bit of snow showing up down here too, just dusting, but we kind of take it to the north central U.S. And there it is. That's probably why they have winter storm warnings up, calling for a good 7 to 8 inches of snow in some areas here in northern Minnesota, but it dramatically cuts off pretty quick. And then as we get the development of that band of snow right in here associated with that cold front, somebody in this little area right in here, I wouldn't say little, but this area right in here could get a quick half inch to inch of snow with some gusty winds associated with it. Certainly possible. So let's talk about the severe weather threat. Right now, as of tonight, about 6:45 Eastern time, we just do have this slight risk still. This could uptrend. It very well could. But notice it's extended all the way up into the central portion of lower Michigan. This does include Detroit, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, almost down to Evansville, St. Louis, Chicago, almost all the way up to Milwaukee. So it covers up a good section of Illinois, Indiana, Northwest Ohio, and like I said, all of southern lower Michigan. Tornado threat, there's a 5% risk of a tornado in this area right in here, all of pretty much northern Indiana, small corner of northwest Ohio, and a very small area of real estate here in southern lower Michigan, and then here in this area in eastern and northeastern Illinois. You might as well include Chicago in this. I think Chicago will get included in this as we get some more updates. The wind threat, there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location in this yellow area. Okay, so we need to watch out for some damaging winds. And then the hail threat. I think this will be the biggest threat tomorrow. But in this 15% risk area, you got a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in a given location. But if you're wondering what this black outlined area is, that means you got also a 10% risk of significant hail, which means you have a 10% risk in this case of 2 inch in diameter or larger hail or bigger in this area. This does include Chicago, almost includes Indianapolis, some higher populated areas right in here. Okay, so hail is going to be a big threat tomorrow. We could get a bump up. If we get a bump up to a 30% chance of that 1 inch hail, then we get an enhanced risk. If we get a bump up to a 10% risk of a tornado, we get an enhanced risk. I don't think we'll get a bump up to a 30% chance of winds. But let's just go right into this, and then we're going to discuss the ingredients. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the latest long-range HRRR model. That's all we'll look at. No point in really comparing it with the NAM. Let's just stick with one model here. And I always favor the HRRR model because all models have a downfall. All models have strengths, and you just kind of have to pick one. And in this case, I typically pick the HRRR model. Sometimes the NAM does better. But here we goes. We're getting into tomorrow afternoon. For example, this is around 3 p.m. Central Time. I know this isn't Eastern Time, but back this up 1 hour. This is 3 p.m. So if you're confused about the timing, look right here. This should help you. I know it's kind of small on your screen, but we're in 3 p.m. So you'll see that move as I continue to kind of move panels here. As you notice, we're about 4 p.m. There's not a whole lot going on. You're thinking, where are the storms? A little bit of shower activity beginning to develop in extreme eastern Iowa, northern sections of Illinois. And then it gets pretty wild pretty fast. All of a sudden, you're getting a lot of elevated storms up into here. You see these reds and even some purples and pinks right into here. This will most likely start producing hail pretty easily. So this is getting into 6 p.m. We got some pretty nasty storms north of Chicago, even getting close to the Milwaukee area. So watch out Janesville. Watch out basically the border of Illinois, Wisconsin to really kickstart this event. We kind of keep this going. I mean, like I said, we're starting to get into 8, 9 p.m. The sun's going down. And look at the cold air already starting to show up. This moisture, you're already starting to see snow on your screen back here in Iowa. At the same time, you got storms down here, too, getting close to the Boot Hill, Missouri, south of St. Louis. You got to watch these storms, too. These storms could... I don't think these storms right down here will be a big tornado threat producer, but you can't rule it out. But these storms could produce some winds. It could produce all hazards. I just don't think the tornado threat will be the highest down here. I really don't at all. But you kind of keep this going, and then suddenly you get some storms right in here popping up, kind of just outside the Indianapolis region. Southern Illinois is getting some, I almost said snow, getting some storms. You got to watch out all these storms right in here. Okay? They could be producing some hail like around the Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids area even, getting into Detroit. And then we start to get into about 10 p.m. The structure, the look on these storms, the timing is going to be everywhere. But in general, anything that pops up in this region has a chance to produce hail. There's a lot of cold air in the upper levels of the atmosphere, really close by, which typically means it's cold air aloft. Hail is can easily happen in this kind of setup. But you got to watch out in Detroit. I mean, this is around 10, 11 p.m. We got some nasty storms moving through southern, even getting into central sections of Michigan. I mean, you guys could get some hail with these storms pretty easily. And then we kind of keep on going. We're getting into around midnight. Looks like you got a line of storms trying to develop right into here. Okay, got some storms even trying to move into Cleveland. Some storms kind of riding the border of Indiana and Kentucky right into here. Some storms up here. It's very scattered about, right? And then eventually, as we're getting into well after midnight, check this out. We got an area of snow moving in through like the northern half of Illinois. It looks heavy too on the HRRR model. At the same time, you got a line of storms developing in the wee hours of the morning, Wednesday morning, making their way through Louisville, Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, cruising through the state of Kentucky, moving through southeast Ohio as we're waking us up on our Wednesday morning here. And in the same areas that it looks like you had hailstorms in southern sections of Michigan, all of a sudden you're getting snow. So, you kind of back this up. This is like 10, 11 p.m. tomorrow night. Looks like you got storms capable of producing large hail into here. And then by the time you are waking up for your Wednesday morning, all of a sudden it's snowing. So if something like this happens, you very well could go to sleep tomorrow night in southern Michigan. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it has a chance to. Go to sleep and you're thinking, oh, yeah, it's just normal weather out here. You go to sleep, all of a sudden you get a hailstorm overnight, and then you wake up and it's snowing. It could happen. So one thing I'm watching, let's back this up a little bit. These storms right here that fire up right into here, this is around 5, 6 p.m. If you're a storm chaser, you target these storms if you want to see a tornado. Right into here. There's going to be a little bit of what we call a triple point that is met, and that's when we're about to talk about the ingredients. There's going to be a period right here where you got a lot of dry, cold air surging in. A warm front, a very weak kind of warm front lifts up into this region, and the ingredients are supportive for some spinach in this area. Not spinach that you eat, but some spinning in the atmosphere. So I do want to watch out Rockford. I want to watch out down to Chicago. And, even though you don't see storms forming in this area right in here, I want to watch out in that area. That's right where you had that 5% risk area. So we'll certainly watch out for all these areas. I think all these storms have the chance to produce hail, but I want to watch, let's circle it here. I want to watch this area right into here, having the best chance of producing a tornado, especially right into here. Okay, so let's talk about why. I kind of showed you just cut and dry information here. Here's kind of diving down into the ingredients on why we're not going to talk about hail much more anymore. Let's talk about why we have to watch for a tornado threat with this setup. So these are dew points, dry, stable air out here in the Midwest. Dew points in the 20s. Then you get into this area, you're waking up tomorrow morning, you got a pool of rich, moist air for late February standards building all the way up into southern Indiana, southern Illinois. Okay, and to keep this going, you're getting all the way till about midday. I want you to kind of look at what's going on. Look how you got dry air kind of moving here. You'll see some motion on this part of your screen, and then you'll see some surging on this part of your screen as the moist air is trying to surge up. So watch how you see the movement. Look how that dry air, you got dew points below zero, right? So we're going all the way up. Look at this like moist air bulge right in here. Just your classic cold front undercutting this little area of low-level moisture. So you got this surge. It's very brief. This surge right here in the northern sections of Illinois, even southern Wisconsin, of dew points getting right into the upper 50s, low 60s. I know you've heard me mention many times you really need those dews to get into the 60s, but we've seen wedge tornadoes in Iowa with dew points in the 50s before. So this is the area you watch. You got this little corridor right into here where Chicago might briefly get a dew point of about 60, and then dry air immediately surges through. Okay? You got a lot more longer of a duration of moisture down here, but what about that low-level jet? What about the lift, more importantly, of thunderstorms? And I think that'll be lacking down here. So you see that bulge right here, right, of that low-level moisture, dew points in the upper 50s, even some 60s readings. This is going to be fascinating to watch real-time observations here in this area tomorrow. It really will. In Chicago, a higher populated area right here in the mix of this. But that dry, stable air of the lake, well, that marine layer of the lake might save you if you live up against the lake. But we'll see what happens. In response to that low-level moisture, how does your CAPE levels respond? So this is mixed layer CAPE, storm fuel. It's already there when we're waking up tomorrow morning. But check out how it spikes right into here. Okay, this is around tomorrow, 5, 6, 7 p.m. Look at these CAPE levels spiking to over 2,000 joules per kilogram right into here. This is where you want to watch out for. Right into here for a tornado threat. And you notice it's just a dramatic cutoff. It goes from over 2,000 joules a kilogram of CAPE just outside of Chicago to nothing up here in Janesville, Wisconsin. This is an area you got to watch here. And then surges in, and then it heads on off. And then one of the best things to look at here too also, those are thermodynamics, right? This is kinematics. What about that low-level wind field? You see how these isobars right here, I'm sorry, not isobars, these wind barbs right here are kind of spinning. You see how they're kind of going like this right into here. You see how the winds are kind of cruising in from the south and they kind of go in like this, and there's some kind of spinach right here. That's our surface low. And if you look how the wind barbs change, they'll change as they move in the right here, right? So I know I just kind of twisted my words all together. But anyways, watch how you have almost a circular motion of the wind barbs right in here. That is the wind flow going around the surface low. And the associated low-level jets of this surface low is moving with it. And check out how it surges right here into our area of interest. Now, it's right into here. You see how you have a pretty dramatic wind shift right from here to here. You know, winds surging out the south right here, and then they dramatically flip, and they're moving like out of the west right in here. And then they dramatically flip when this cold front completely moves through out the north. You notice right here, winds are kind of coming out almost like the southwest, you might as well say. And then the winds are coming out the north right in here. You see how the wind barbs are pointing to the north. That is your cold front, the dramatic flip. So this low-level jet surges in really quickly, and then it heads on off, and the cold front sweeps on through. So this is that little window right here where you had that dramatic change in the low levels of the atmosphere of wind direction. In the upper levels of the atmosphere, the winds are already shifting. Okay, but this is that window you watch, that little bulge right in here, what we call a triple point. It's basically where your best ingredients meet. Your kinematics, your thermodynamics, best lift, things like that. And in fact, you know, you kind of go back and look at this, right? You look at the Cape levels, and I want to click a sounding out of this area, see if we can get a good example of this. Man, this thing's moving slow. We kind of click a sounding right here just west of Chicago, and tornado, you immediately see that, right? But what I want you to notice here is how you have this looping hodograph, and this is actually, I'm going to have to do it like this. See how it's kind of going like this, and it almost kind of hooks like that. So we have a looping hodograph, which means there's spin in the atmosphere. And then what I want you to notice here is there's not much turning with height. There's not a dramatic dramatic change of wind direction right into here. But you got temperature spiking to about 70, dew points in the upper 60s, okay? And you got a lot of cold air aloft. So you can already see there's a lot of cold air kind of moving in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So there is a turning of winds with the increase in height, but there's no dramatic shift. But there's enough there with a turning, the further up you get in the atmosphere, for there to be a little bit of a spin in the atmosphere right into here. So we certainly have a tornado threat very briefly for a couple hours right into here. And it's just tucked in right in between two different air masses before ultimately the cold front kind of sweeps in. So I know I spent a lot of time into that, but I just kind of want to explain the dynamics of it. Let's talk about this brief winter weather threats up here in the upper Midwest. And well, you're going to see the severe thunderstorms down here too. One thing that's going to be wild, guys, is as we're getting late into the overnight hours tomorrow, we could get some thunderstorms all the way into the northern areas of lower Michigan. Some thunderstorms are possible tomorrow night all the way into the western UP of Michigan, guys. I'm sorry, the eastern UP of Michigan. Could be storming in the eastern UP and snowing in the central and western UP of Michigan sometime tomorrow night. Very dynamic weather as you have a clashing of two different air masses. But check it out. I mean, you got snow that moves into western sections of Wisconsin as we were getting into tomorrow evening, begins to overspread, could be heavy, very heavy at times. Some snow could fall for a couple hours in like Green Bay as we're getting into the overnight hours. Snow begins to fly around across the UP of Michigan. Could get a little bit of ice that is very possible in the northern UP of Michigan area. And then cold air spills over Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and we could actually get some lake effect snow as we were getting into our Wednesday for a several hour period. This takes us all the way till midday Wednesday. Check out this lake effect snow streamers going off Lake Superior, and then Lake Michigan, even some lake to lake connections. So we could definitely start to add up the snow for a brief period as this system moves in and cold air kind of moves over the lakes. So pretty wild stuff. Between now and Thursday evening, a few to several inches of snow is possible. I could see this increasing. We'll see what happens. The freezing rain they're keeping things pretty low. I don't think you're going to get much icing from this. I think if there is rain falling below freezing, I think it's going to be falling so hard it's going to have a hard time accumulating on anything. But there is going to be a chance for some light glazing of freezing rain here in the far extreme eastern UP of Michigan and northern lower Michigan. It's very possible. So as this whole system kind of progresses to the east, we are going to have a chance of some thunderstorms also for the rest of the Ohio Valley into the northeast, maybe even the Appalachian Mountains. So, we'll kind of mention that again tomorrow morning, but we will watch for a line of storms that could potentially sweep through Kentucky, West Virginia, heck, maybe all the way down to Tennessee, maybe all the way through West Virginia, Pennsylvania. But once upon a time, we were kind of thinking, hey, maybe there was a chance for some rain switching to snow as far south as the Appalachian Mountains. I'm not really buying it, but we are going to get some rain from this event that kind of moves over the entire eastern U.S. just about, a little bit lesser down here in the deep south. But as we're getting into our Wednesday evening, could have some gusty winds as a cold front's really moving through. Low right in here, right on Long Island. Could bring some gusty winds across the northeast, some rain switching to snow in the interior northeast, and then we'll get some lake effect snow action, like I said, from Wednesday into Thursday for a period, and then it'll kind of let up as we are getting into our Friday. So if you got any plans this weekend, I will mention some rain to kickstart your Friday as a low pressure tries to move and affect everybody's weather, bring some rain across the deep south, mid-south. It could be a pretty rainy first weekend of March here across the southeast. If it's not raining, it might be kind of dreary. No cold air to be found, so there's not going to be any winter weather with this. The GFS was kind of flirting with that idea for a period. Now it's really not. But here comes this big system out west. So we'll start this off, really tomorrow afternoon. A lot of moisture surging into the Pacific Northwest, really just affecting the Cascades, really just the northern Cascades here in Washington State. As we move into our Wednesday morning, surge of moisture continues just mainly for the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies. Some snow as we're getting into Wednesday afternoon continues to kind of work its way west to east. And then we are starting to get into our Thursday morning. And then this is when we start to get another trough that begins to dig down into the Pacific and begin to affect areas of the western U.S. This is when we start to get some more moisture that begins to make its way into a Thursday evening, and more cold air coming with it. Snow levels will drop, and then we start to get some heavy snow in the higher elevations of Northern California. Even the coastal ranges could get some snow. The Cascades of Oregon and Washington State, heavy snow. Northern Rockies getting snow. Western Montana, Idaho, and we continue to make our way. And just another kind of similar look, right? Looks like you got a cold front moving through. Snow, it is snowing like crazy in the Sierra Nevada. The potential for the biggest winter storm of the winter moves in, and this is a wild way to kickstart March, right? Here we are. But, we continue to work our way, and just an intense funnel of moisture has the potential to slam California. And, man, in the form of very, very heavy snow. Look at this cold front diving all the way down to California. This is getting into Saturday morning. Things begin to calm down a little bit more up here in the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, but then the snow really picks up for the Central Rockies, Utah, Wyoming, Southern Idaho, Nevada, and guys, this is going to be some very, very heavy snow. I'm talking about like several inch per hour rates are possible in this kind of setup coming up for the Sierra Nevada. And you've even still got a lot of energy flying around across the Northern Rockies. And then what is this going to do as this starts to kind of get into Colorado, things like that? Could this pose a big-time storm threat for someone across the high plains? And as you can tell, there goes a low ejecting, bringing snow across the northern plains. But this has the potential to be a big one. The European ensemble, this is in 2-day, 48-hour increments here. And so you'll notice this signal will begin to disappear, and then another one will enter your screen. And here it comes. Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Saturday morning. Look at this massive signal for heavy snow across the western U.S. in those higher elevations. And this oozes down into the southern and central Rockies. And then, big winter storm potential with this for everybody. The National Weather Service locally already discussing this. This is certainly looking likely in some form or fashion. Then we switch to the central U.S., okay? This has a potential to be a severe weather event as we're getting into our Sunday morning. A lot of snow flying around across the northern plains. And then here comes a surface low right into here that begins to eject across the middle of the country somewhere. This is Sunday evening. This is probably pulling in a lot of low-level moisture, big moisture return. How fast does this cold front kind of progress? There's probably going to be a big-time severe weather threat somewhere in here if something like this was to play out, with the potential for a winter storm on the cold side of this. And it does turn into a pretty big winter storm for these areas, a very fast-moving, negatively tilted, dynamic winter storm. And then it moves on out. So that's what the Euro shows. I know you're thinking, well, I didn't see much from this. This is a really good way to look at it. This is that massive trough digging in, already moved in as we get into this weekend. But what I want you to watch here is this is getting into about Sunday midday. You see how this trough immediately takes on that neutral and then negative tilt? One thing we know, when a trough, well, we're back in pink here. When a trough is tilted like this, that's what we call positively tilted. Okay? When it's tilted like that, it kind of takes on that is neutrally tilted. I'm sorry, I'm getting all over the place. And then when it goes from neutrally tilted to like what it's showing right here, like this, that's what we call negatively tilted. When we have a storm that's going negatively tilted like that and fully ejects across the middle of the country, that means that you got maxed out ingredients for a lot of things out there. The system becomes very dynamic. Comes very strong. When it comes negatively tilted, it's a sign of a strengthening storm signal system. I'm losing my wording here, guys. I'm going to have to wrap this up before I start saying things I don't want to say. But all in all, this looks like the sign of a pretty strong storm system out west and then eventually making its way through the middle of the country. We really need to watch this. This fully ejects across the middle of the country right here when the associated surface lows. And when you have something like this, of course, you look at the kinematic wind field with this going into Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and there it is. You see this kind of exit region of the mid-level jet right in here. You know, this would most likely pose a pretty nasty, severe weather threat, probably right into here. As this mid-level jet is starting to take on that negative tilt because of the trough taking on that strengthening, negatively tilted look to it. We got to watch this. We really do. This is definitely a look that you don't want to see, but luckily it's far out, and hopefully this will downtrend. But in response to such a digging trough, it's going to pull up a lot of low-level juice as far as moisture at the levels of the surface here. And, of course, once we start to get into Sunday morning, you already got dew points and response climbing deep into the 60s. That surface moisture we watch out for into central and eastern Texas. And then as we are getting into our Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, you have a classic-looking dry line setting up right in here with very dry, stable air on one side. And then you got moist air on the other side, on the right side of this. So this is something we watch, right? And it's pretty uncommon to see a late February dry line type setup like this, but it's been some weird weather lately, guys. And even as we get into our Sunday nights, that's a lot of moisture down here. But the cold front surges in, and we just need to watch this, guys. And there's not much they're seeing it. They certainly are seeing it from the Storm Prediction Center. But I think as we wake up tomorrow or either Wednesday morning, I think we're going to have a 15% risk threat put up for day 7, day 8, something like that. But we'll have to watch it. But you can read this here. I'm not going to read it word for word, but they're already discussing an upper trough is forecasted to dig across the western U.S. and then eventually emerging into the plains around Sunday. So they're already talking about it, and they already mentioned the words severe potential, but they need a little bit more confidence that they need to see these models kind of come together a little bit more. So we'll see and we'll watch for that. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and you guys have a great rest of your night.